This is a true life story. Sometimes, the wounds of war are not only carried in the body but in the heart. For U.S. Army Sergeant Daniel Miller, nothing could have prepared him for the battle he would face when he returned home, not on foreign soil but within the four walls of his own house. Daniel had been deployed to Afghanistan for almost 2 years. He was a man who had given everything for his country, his strength, his sleep, his peace of mind. The only thing that kept him alive during those sleepless desert nights was the thought of home, his loyal German shepherd Max and his little girl Alida. Alida was just 8 years old with a smile that could light up a broken soul. She was his reason for breathing after the tragic loss of his wife Emily, who had died giving birth to her. Daniel had promised Emily as she lay weak on the hospital bed that he would never let anything happen to their daughter. That promise had kept him going through grief, through war, through every sleepless night under fire. But war demands sacrifice, and Daniel had been forced to leave Alida behind when he was called to serve again. He thought he was doing the right thing for his country, and he believed he had done the right thing for his daughter too, leaving her in the care of a trusted nanny, a woman named Teresa. She was paid well, and he had written instructions for Alida's care. He thought she was safe. He thought she was loved. But sometimes, the people we trust the most carry the darkest secrets. The plane landed at the base in Texas. Families cheered, wives cried in the arms of their husbands, children leapt into the arms of fathers they hadn't seen in months. Daniel's eyes scanned the crowd, searching, hoping, just maybe, that Teresa had brought Alida to welcome him home. But she wasn't there. A lump rose in his throat. Maybe she was sick. Maybe Teresa didn't want to stress her by bringing her into a noisy military base. He tried to calm his nerves, reminding himself he would see her in just a few hours. He signed the papers, saluted his commander one last time, and picked up his bag. His heart raced with anticipation. Every mile that brought him closer to his daughter seemed to slow time down. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "Just a few more minutes, baby girl," he whispered to himself. "Daddy coming home." When he finally pulled into the driveway of his small suburban home, something felt wrong. The grass in the yard was overgrown. The mailbox overflowed with letters. The curtains were drawn tight. Max, his dog, didn't bark or run to the door like he always did when Daniel returned from deployments before. The silence was suffocating. Daniel dropped his bag on the porch and banged on the door. "Alida, Teresa, it's Daddy, I'm home." No answer. His chest tightened. He tried the handle. It turned easily. The smell hit him first. A mixture of dust, rot, and something he couldn't place. He stepped inside, his boots creaking on the wooden floor. The house looked abandoned. Plates with dried food lay on the table. The trash bin overflowed. Cobwebs clung to the corners. "Teresa," his voice echoed shaky. "Alida, where are you?" He moved from room to room, empty. His daughter's toys were scattered across the floor, but no child's laughter filled the air. Then from the back of the house he heard it, a faint, weak whimper. His heart nearly stopped. He rushed toward the sound, his footsteps pounding against the floor. He pushed open the door to Alida's room. What he saw knocked the air out of his lungs. There on the cold wooden floor lay Max, the once strong, proud German shepherd. His fur was dirty, his ribs showed through his skin, and beside him, curled up in a thin blanket, was little Alida. Her face was pale, her lips cracked, her body frail. Max had his paw draped protectively over her tiny frame, as though shielding her with the last strength he had. Tears blurred Daniel's eyes. He dropped to his knees, his body trembling. "Alida, baby girl," his voice broke. Her eyelids fluttered open slowly, as if even the act of waking up was a battle she was losing. When her weak eyes met his, her cracked lips curved into the faintest smile. "Daddy," she whispered. Daniel's heart shattered. He gathered her into his arms, feeling how light she had become, like carrying a bundle of bones wrapped in fragile skin. "Daddy's here. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I'm here now. I'm never leaving you again." His tears fell onto her hair as he rocked her gently. Max let out a soft whine, nudging Daniel's hand with his nose before collapsing again, too weak to stand. It was then Daniel noticed the empty cupboards, the flies buzzing in the kitchen, the silence that screamed of abandonment. Teresa was gone. She had taken the money and left his little girl to starve, with only Max to comfort her. As Daniel clutched his daughter, her small fingers tugged at his uniform. "Daddy, Max saved me. He gave me his food." Her words broke him. Max, starving himself, had dragged scraps from the trash, pushing them toward Alita so she wouldn't die. The loyal dog had chosen her life over his own. Daniel sobbed, clutching both his daughter and his dog. A soldier who had faced bombs, bullets, and bloodshed, now brought to his knees by the sight of his starving child and dying companion. "God, why didn't I see this coming?" he cried out, his voice cracking with pain. But Alita, fragile as she was, raised her hand to his cheek. "Don't cry, Daddy, you came back, you kept your promise." Her words stabbed at him like knives. He hadn't kept his promise, he had left her, he had trusted the wrong person, and now he was holding the fragile remains of what was once his whole world. That night, Daniel sat on the floor of the bedroom, his daughter wrapped in his arms, Max curled weakly beside them. He didn't sleep, he didn't move, he just held them, afraid that if he let go, they would vanish. He thought of Emily, his late wife. He remembered her last words, "Promise me, Daniel, that you'll protect her." For the first time in years, he whispered to the empty room, "Emily, I failed you, but I swear on my life I'll never fail her again." And as the sun rose through the cracked blinds, illuminating the broken family clinging to each other, Daniel knew this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. The war abroad was over, but the war for his daughter's life, for her healing, for her trust, that was only beginning. The morning after Daniel's return was not the joyous homecoming he had dreamed of for 2 years. Instead, it was a fight against time. His daughter's fragile breaths haunted him with every passing second. His loyal dog's weak whimpers echoed like cries for help. He knew if he delayed even one more hour, he might lose them both. Daniel wasted no time. With trembling arms, he lifted Alita, so light it terrified him, and wrapped her in his old military jacket. Max, though weak, tried to rise when Daniel called his name. The dog staggered, his legs shaking, but his eyes burned with the same loyalty that had kept him alive beside Alita. Daniel scooped him up too, carrying both his treasures in his arms as though his life depended on it. And in truth, it did. The engine roared as Daniel sped down the quiet suburban streets, his eyes blurred with tears. Every red light, every car in his way felt like a cruel test of fate. "Hold on, baby girl," he whispered, glancing at Alita in the passenger seat. Her head rested against the window, eyes half closed. Her voice was barely audible. "Daddy, are we going to the park?" Daniel's heart cracked. The park, her favorite place. Even in her suffering, her innocent mind clung to happier memories. "Yes, sweetheart," he lied gently, squeezing her tiny hand. "But first, we'll see some nice people who will help you feel strong again, then we'll go to the park together." Behind him, Max lay stretched out across the back seat, breathing shallowly. Daniel glanced at him through the mirror. "Don't you give up on me, boy," he muttered through clenched teeth. "You saved her life, now let me save yours." The hospital doors swung open as Daniel rushed inside, carrying Alita in his arms. His uniform caught the attention of the nurses immediately. "Soldier, what happened?" one of them exclaimed, rushing toward him. "She's been starved, abandoned, please, she needs help." His voice was desperate, raw. "And my dog too, he hasn't eaten, he gave her everything." The nurses exchanged horrified glances. One of them called for a pediatric specialist, while another directed Daniel toward the veterinary wing for Max. "No, I'm not leaving them," Daniel barked, panic flashing in his eyes. "Sir, we'll take care of both, but your daughter needs immediate attention, trust us." For the first time in years, Daniel felt powerless. In the battlefield, he had control, he had training, strategy, weapons, but here in this white-walled hospital, he was just a broken father begging strangers to save the 2 lives he loved most. Hours felt like days. Daniel sat in the waiting room, his hands clasped tightly, his uniform stained with sweat and tears. Every sound of footsteps made his head snap up. Finally, a doctor approached. She was a kind-looking woman in her 40s with tired eyes that carried both authority and compassion. "Mr. Miller." Daniel stood so fast his chair fell behind him. "How is she? How's my daughter?" The doctor exhaled softly. "She's severely malnourished. From what we can tell, she hasn't had proper meals for weeks. Her body is fragile, but children are resilient. With treatment, rest, and love, she has a chance to recover." Daniel's eyes brimmed with tears. Relief and guilt collided inside him. Thank God, I thought I was going to lose her." But the doctor's face remained serious. "There's something else," she said gently. "She's been through trauma. Starvation doesn't just hurt the body, it scars the mind. She may struggle with fear, nightmares, even trust. She needs you more than ever now, not just as her father, but as her safe place." Daniel swallowed hard. He had fought enemies on foreign soil, but this was a war he didn't know how to win. "And my dog?" he asked, almost afraid of the answer. The doctor hesitated. "The vets are working on him. He's in critical condition. From what they described, it seems he refused to eat unless your daughter did. He gave up his food for her." Daniel covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. Max had nearly died to keep his promise when Daniel couldn't. Hours later, a nurse led Daniel into a small hospital room. The sight nearly broke him again. Alita lay in a bed too big for her tiny frame, tubes attached to her fragile arms, an oxygen mask over her mouth. Yet when she saw her father, her eyes lit up weakly. "Daddy," she whispered, reaching out with trembling fingers. Daniel rushed to her side, taking her hand in both of his. He kissed it over and over, tears dripping onto her skin. "I'm here, Princess. Daddy, here now, you're safe." Her lips quivered into a smile. "Did Max come too?" "Yes," Daniel said softly. "He's just getting some care like you are. He'll be okay." She nodded weakly, her eyes fluttering closed again. But before sleep claimed her, she whispered something that made Daniel's chest ache. "Daddy, don't go back to the war. Stay with me, please." He pressed his forehead to hers, whispering through tears, "I promise, Alita, I'm never leaving you again, not ever." Later that evening, Daniel made his way to the veterinary wing. He found Max lying on a table hooked up to IV fluids. His once sharp eyes were dim, but when he saw Daniel, his tail gave the faintest wag. The vet, a young man with gentle hands, spoke softly. "He's a fighter, but he's weak. If he survives tonight, he might make it. Honestly, I've never seen loyalty like this. That dog refused to eat unless your daughter was fed. He starved himself for her." Daniel knelt beside Max, stroking his fur. "You saved her, boy. You kept her alive when I wasn't here. You're her hero. Please don't leave her now. She still needs you." Max let out a soft whine and nuzzled Daniel's hand before closing his eyes again. That night, Daniel sat between two hospital rooms, his daughter in one, his dog in another. His heart was torn in half. He thought of Emily again. He remembered her laughter, her warmth, the way she used to hold Alita as a baby. He had promised her that their daughter would never know pain, never feel alone. Yet here he was, staring at the fragile body of their child, nearly lost because he had chosen duty over family. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered into the sterile air, "Emily, I'm sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting her by serving my country. But I left her with the wrong person." The guilt gnawed at him. He had survived bombs and bullets, but the weight of his daughter's suffering was crushing him more than any battlefield ever had. As dawn broke, Daniel heard the soft sound of footsteps. The doctor appeared, her face gentler than the night before. "She's stable," she said with a small smile. "She even asked for pancakes when she wakes up. That's a good sign." Daniel chuckled weakly, wiping his eyes. Pancakes, that was her mom's favorite too. "And your dog?" the vet added, appearing behind her. "He made it through the night. He's weak, but he's alive. He must have a strong reason to fight." Daniel looked at the two people in front of him, then back toward the rooms where his daughter and dog lay. His voice trembled, but his eyes burned with determination. "They're my reason, they're all I have left, and I swear I won't fail them again." In the days that followed, Daniel remained by Alita's side. He fed her tiny spoonfuls of food, read her bedtime stories, brushed her hair when the nurses washed it. He never let her wake up alone, never let her go to sleep without hearing the words, "Daddy, here." And every evening, he visited Max, sitting with him as the dog slowly regained strength. The bond between the three of them grew even deeper, forged not just by love but by survival, sacrifice, and scars. But Daniel knew this was only the beginning. Healing was not a straight road, it was a battlefield of its own. His daughter had lived through abandonment, hunger, and fear. Trust would take time, smiles would take time. And the maid who had betrayed them, Teresa, was still out there, a shadow that haunted Daniel's every thought. When you've walked through the fire, every small light feels like a miracle. For Daniel, those lights came slowly like fragile candles flickering in a storm. his daughter's faint laughter returning after weeks of silence, his dog lifting his head one morning, wagging his tail again. Each moment felt like a second chance, a whisper of grace after so much darkness. But healing wasn't easy, it never is. A week passed in the hospital. Each day, Daniel watched Alida grow a little stronger. The doctors carefully reintroduced food into her system: warm soup, soft bread, small bites of fruit. He sat by her side at every meal, encouraging her with gentle words. "Just one more spoonful, princess, you're doing amazing." She would eat slowly, her big eyes fixed on him as though afraid he might disappear if she looked away. And sometimes, in the quiet of the night, she would still wake up screaming, "Daddy, don't leave me, please don't go." Those nights broke him the most. He would climb into her hospital bed, hold her tightly, and whisper, "I'm not leaving, Alida. I'll never leave you again, Daddy, here." Gradually, her nightmares grew less frequent, and one morning she surprised him with a smile that looked like the sun breaking through storm clouds. "Daddy, can we go to the park when I get better?" His throat tightened, but he forced a smile. "Yes, baby, we'll go to the park every single day if you want." Meanwhile, Max's recovery was its own battle. The vets marveled at his survival. He had lost nearly half his body weight, but his spirit never faltered. Every time Daniel visited, Max's eyes lit up, his tail tapping weakly against the bed. And then one afternoon, the miracle happened. Daniel entered the veterinary ward expecting the usual tired glance. Instead, Max struggled to his feet, stumbled forward, and pressed his head into Daniel's chest. Tears filled the soldier's eyes as he knelt to hold his dog. "You made it, boy, you stayed with her and you made it." The vet smiled softly. "Dogs like him, they don't just live for themselves. He lived for your daughter. That kind of loyalty, it's rare." Daniel scratched Max's ears, whispering, "You're family. You'll always be family." But while his daughter and dog healed, another storm brewed inside Daniel. The thought of Teresa, the woman who had abandoned Alida, consumed him. How could anyone leave an innocent child to starve? How could she take money and walk away knowing what it meant? Daniel filed a report. The authorities began searching, and within weeks they found her. She had moved to another city, living comfortably with the money she had stolen. She was arrested, her face pale as stone, when Daniel entered the courtroom. He didn't shout, he didn't rage. His voice was low, steady, filled with pain instead of fire. "You left my little girl to die. You took everything I gave you, her food, her trust, her safety, and you abandoned her like trash. My daughter cried for me every night. My dog starved himself to keep her alive. And where were you, living in comfort while they suffered?" Teresa lowered her eyes, unable to speak. The judge sentenced her to prison for neglect and theft. Justice was served, but Daniel knew no punishment could erase what his daughter had endured. Still, it brought him a measure of peace. As they left the courthouse, Alida, holding his hand, whispered, "Daddy, can we forget her now?" He knelt, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart, we'll forget her. She doesn't deserve another piece of our hearts." Weeks later, Alida was discharged from the hospital. She was still fragile, but her cheeks carried a hint of color again. Her laughter began to return in little bursts, like birds learning to sing after a storm. And on her first day home, Daniel made good on his promise. He took her to the park. She wore a bright yellow dress, her small hand clutching his tightly as Max trotted beside them, thinner than before but wagging his tail proudly. They walked slowly to a wooden bench where Alita sat, her legs swinging. "Look, Daddy," she said softly, pointing to the children playing. "They're happy." "You'll be happy too, baby," Daniel whispered, kissing the top of her head. "I'll make sure of it." She leaned against him, sighing contentedly. "As long as you and Max are with me, I'm happy already." Daniel's eyes stung. In that moment, the battlefield, the pain, the guilt, all of it faded. Because here, in this small park, sitting beside his daughter and loyal dog, he had everything he had ever fought for. Months passed. Life began to feel normal again, though not the same. It could never be the same. Some scars were invisible, stitched deep into the soul. But Daniel transformed his pain into purpose. He quit active duty, choosing instead to train young recruits from home. His new mission was clear: he would never leave his daughter again. Every morning he made her breakfast. Every afternoon they walked Max together. Every evening, he tucked her into bed, reading stories until her eyes closed in peace. One night, as he kissed her forehead, she whispered, "Daddy, you're my hero." Tears filled his eyes as he whispered back, "No, Alita, you and Max are my heroes. You saved each other. You saved me." A year later, on the anniversary of his return, Daniel decided to take Alita and Max back to the park. The grass was greener, the sky bluer. Alita ran ahead, her laughter ringing like music, while Max bounded after her with renewed strength. Daniel watched them, his heart swelling. He remembered the night he found them, starving, broken, nearly gone, and he looked at them now, alive, smiling, whole. He dropped to his knees on the grass, tears rolling down his cheeks. Because sometimes soldiers don't come home to medals or parades, sometimes they come home to heartbreak, but if they're lucky, they also come home to miracles. And Daniel's miracle was this: an 8-year-old girl who had survived the unthinkable, a loyal dog who had given everything to protect her, and the chance to love them both with the kind of love that never leaves. So if you ever doubt the power of love, remember this story. Remember the soldier who returned not to cheers, but to tears. Remember the child who survived because a dog chose hunger over betrayal. Remember the promise of a father who swore never to leave again. And remember that sometimes the strongest battles are not fought on distant fields, but in the fragile hearts of the ones we come home to.